Hello everyone, welcome to the Tech and Auto Show. I'm your host Manav Sinha and it is so good to see all of you lovely people once again. In case you're new here, well, you've just tuned into that one show which satisfies your hunger for both technology as well as automobiles at one place, which basically means why should you be watching two shows when you can watch one? This one. Now, just like every time, since we cover the world of both technology as well as automobiles, there's a lot of action that we have to get to. So let's kick things off by first showing you a glimpse of what you can expect over the course of the next half an hour. This week, we'll be taking a closer look at the flagship Samsung offering, the Galaxy S21 Ultra. Then we'll be taking you to India's first and exclusive Porsche Design Studio. And then we'll talk about the hottest thing in town, Bitcoins. So yes, we'll be covering all of that, and like we mentioned, we're going to start off with Samsung. You see, in the world of Android smartphones, Samsung Galaxy series of smartphones really stand out from the crowd, and that is what they have been known for a long time. Now, they have come out with a new flagship series of phones that heads the Galaxy series. It's called the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, and it's perhaps the best Samsung experience that you can have right now. Vishal has got his hands on the phone, and here's what he has to say about it.
Be honest with yourselves for a second. Isn't it really hard to get excited about Android phones now in general? Don't most of them really pretty much look the same as the other, carry the same specs as the other, and largely the baseline performance and experience is very similar? That is the Android ecosystem right now. It's really difficult to get genuinely excited about an Android phone. However, there is one phone that actually made its way into the ecosystem last year, the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra. And that now has its successor, the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, and that really has to be the most defining Android phone at this time in terms of the experience, the specs, and the overall personality. Here it is. Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra is part of the Troika. That's the Galaxy S21, the Galaxy S21 Plus, and, well, of course, the Ultra. These three new phones are a part of Samsung's latest assault on the Android smartphone market, particularly the flagship space, and they've really made the first move. Instead of a February launch as it happened last year, this time around, January is when Samsung decided to get the ball rolling. First of all, it's the display. The display is now 6.8 inches instead of 6.9 inches last year, which made that the biggest phone in the Android ecosystem at that point of time. In terms of the experience, you get something very similar. It's rich, it's bright, and well, it's absolutely gorgeous to look at. This is rated 1500 nits of brightness, which means, well, this really will never give up no matter how bright the sunlight might be, and whatever you want to read on it is going to be very legible. The big change, however, has to be the 120Hz resolution, which is now available across all resolution options available to you. Last year's phone, if you wanted the 120Hz resolution, 120Hz refresh rate, I apologize, you had to switch to a full HD resolution. That compromise no longer exists, so that has to be the biggest upgrade in terms of where the display really stands. In terms of the performance, you get the new Exynos 2100 processor, which builds up from last year's phone. In terms of what you will experience on an everyday basis as you use the phone with apps, multitasking, and games is not much of a difference. That being said, because last year's phone was no slouch. It was extremely powerful. Yes, in terms of the baseline performance, in terms of raw benchmarks, if you run that, yes, the Exynos 2100 will be significantly better, and that just gives your new phone a lot more headroom in terms of performance. Also, this phone now has the UFS 3.1 storage, which basically means faster read and write speeds, which is why everything just feels a lot snappier. You get a lot of RAM as well. There are two variants available, one with 12GB of RAM, one with 16GB of RAM. Whichever one you pick, to be honest, it's going to be blazing fast. What I'm using is the 12GB RAM version, no slowdowns, no stutters, nothing at all. So I can only imagine the 16GB RAM version will be very similar and even better with a little more headroom. There's a big change in terms of the design. This now has a matte finish at the back, but what you get is the ruggedness of the Gorilla Glass Victus. It's the strongest glass that's available for the smartphone ecosystem right now. And this is the second phone from Samsung to really utilize that. The Galaxy Note 20 from last year was the first one. This looks absolutely gorgeous. The color is Phantom Black. You also have the option of Phantom Silver. Irrespective of which color you pick, well, this really will stand out in a sea of Android smartphones. The thing is, Samsung have made black color look quite interesting. Generally, the perception is that black phones are boring. They're basically meant for a purpose, for users who don't really want to stand out in a crowd. But this black will help you stand out there as well. In terms of the camera, what you have leading the line is a 108 megapixel sensor even now, but it's a new sensor, not the one seen in last year's phone. There's changes to the quad camera setup across the board, which basically means you will get even further optimizations in terms of photography performance, because not just the hardware, it's the software and the algorithms that have also been improved. Last year's phone had this slight issue, and you would have noticed it, that it would not really focus as quickly as you would want it to, and the camera had a little bit of problem with focus tracking in case the subject was moving. That's not the problem with this new camera anymore. This quad camera setup does focus extremely well, it locks in instantly, and even for moving subjects, there's absolutely no problem with tracking. Samsung has sorted out that issue perfectly with this new combination of hardware and software for cameras. The photographs that you get are absolutely gorgeous. They are bright, they are rich, they have great dynamic range, and well, 30x zoom option for once is really usable. You can actually use 30x zoom photos if your hand has been stable enough when you're clicking them. 100x, yes, it's still something to be on paper. You may not really get photos that you can use on social media or for sharing with friends, but yes, it's a good function to have, at least on the spec sheet front. Finally, so what do you get from the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra? What you have is a phone that has built from where the predecessor left off. Samsung had to identify those little aspects of the experiential of the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra as well as the spec sheet on where they could improve with the successor. They found those exact aspects. One is the display, which now does 120Hz refresh rate across the board. The second is the camera, which now focuses much better and has no problems with focus tracking as well. And finally, well, the new processor also eliminates the heating issues that we noticed sometimes with the previous Exynos chip in the Galaxy S20 Ultra. All in all, you continue to have the same brilliant, fast Android phone experience. I had called the last year's phone an Android super phone. This is actually building on that aspect. With those things which really need to be refined, they have been refined. What you have with the Galaxy S21 Ultra is the ultimate Android flagship phone that you can buy right now. There is really no question that this is resetting the benchmark for Android flagship phones. The question is, how soon can the rivals respond?
So there you have it. That was the Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra. But now let's move on to the world of automobiles. And if you're a long-time viewer of our show, you will know that one of the most fun we've had making a story was when we rode the Porsche 911, the latest one, at the Buddha International Circuit a couple of years ago. And that was a story that came out really well, and we enjoyed making it as well. Now, however, the circumstances are different and we can't really hit a racetrack to bring you the review of the latest Porsche. So what Porsche is doing is they're bringing that exclusive Porsche experience to a dealership. That's what they're calling the Porsche Design Studio. The first one has opened up in Delhi. It's one of the 14 dealerships in the world, which makes it really important. I got to check it out, and here's how it went. Now, Porsche has been taking the Indian market very seriously, and the first glimpse of that we saw about a couple of years ago when they launched the iconic Porsche 911 in the Indian market. During that day, they had set up an exclusive drive event at the Buddha International Circuit. We got to drive the 911 there, and that was a really fun day. Nevertheless, their attempt at making us feel special hasn't really stopped, because now they've come up with this place where we are at right now. It's called the Porsche Design Studio. It's opened up in Delhi, and it's one of the very few in the world. You see, buying a premium car such as a Porsche is a little bit different than buying other cars. Let's take the Porsche 911 for example. If you were to be buying this, then there is a host of customization options that you can go for, and I cannot stress this enough, you really can make it your own. And it is this experience of buying a Porsche that the German automaker is trying to emphasize with the Porsche Design Studio. This has opened up in Delhi and it is one of the handful of such centers that are located all around the world. And the fact that India gets it before several other markets shows just how important it is for Porsche. The moment you walk into the design studio, you will be greeted by swanky Porsche vehicles, which on the day we visited were the Porsche 911 Carrera S and the Porsche 911 Carrera S Cabriolet. This ramp-like setup looks fantastic, and behind it is a big screen telling you all about the car you are interested in. What's new and different with the design studio part of this place, however, is the fact that you get a cafe-like setup where you can sit and discuss which Porsche is right for you or talk about Porsche with like-minded people. And like we said, buying a Porsche involves massive customization opportunities, and at the design studio, you can really get a feel of how the car will turn out to be. You have a massive touchscreen where you can spend hours customizing your Porsche to the tiniest of details, and in case you're unsure of something, then the studio has features like a collection of different materials that are used inside the car and even the color choice and finish combinations that you can go for. Other than that, you also can buy several Porsche goodies and collectible items, and even understand the history of Porsche at the design studio. That's not it, you can also take a look at the accessories that you can opt for and get a good feel about the materials that will be used in the car. Additionally, Porsche has also set up a display area showing the charger for the Porsche Taycan electric sedan, which is expected to come to India soon, and this is really exciting. All in all, it is a much more immersive experience and is unlike any other that is currently offered by a premium automaker in the country. It's everything you expect from a conventional dealership, but with a personal touch. Not only is it exciting to see Porsche pulling out all the stops for India, but it also sets the stage for the Porsche Taycan whenever it comes to our market. Well, now let's talk about one of the most happening things in the world of internet, Bitcoin. You see, Tesla invested a bucket load of money in Bitcoin and said that they will probably be accepting Bitcoin as a term of payment as well for their future cars. And as a result, the prices for Bitcoin skyrocketed. But what does that mean? And what is this entire concept of cryptocurrencies and digital money? And what all should you be knowing about it, since everybody is talking about it these days? Well, Shavik is putting it all down up next.
Earlier this week, Tesla became one of the first and one of the biggest corporate entities to have invested in the cryptocurrency Bitcoin. Now, this move marks a major moment in the history of cryptocurrencies and the future of cryptocurrencies, in fact, because this marks a point where corporations have started accepting cryptocurrencies as a way of valid trade. Now, cryptocurrencies have had a deep history of risks being associated with them, the major cause for which is the lack of regulation and the lack of centralization of the money that cryptocurrencies represent, as a result of which its values are known to be very volatile, which has been seen in Bitcoin's history. Now, what does this move really mean for Bitcoin, which has, in the scheme of cryptocurrencies, been one of the most successful cryptocurrencies? To understand that, we have to look at the value that Bitcoin has represented over time. After starting in single-digit sums, Bitcoin has catapulted to a point where today it trades at close to $46,000 per Bitcoin. So it has that massive amount of value that it has generated, and the reason for that has been the interest around the blockchain and cryptocurrency technologies. Now, blockchain has represented one of the most secure forms of technology today, and the essence of this technology generally means that it's very difficult to be broken into, and it is completely decentralized, which means that it is a form of currency which is not held by a particular body. Now, while that is good, and which means that the virtual currency is up for open and fair trade, it also means that in terms of regulations, it's very difficult to grab hold of a currency like Bitcoin. There's no central body which can, for instance, help you recover your Bitcoin if you end up losing it or if thieves end up stealing your crypto wallet. The nature of cryptocurrency means that nobody else can really help you recover your passwords or recover your keys, which is a big concern in this new currency field. Many players have also expressed concern that for corporate entities which have market holdings in futures and other forms, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies do not represent a good idea because its values are very volatile and it can erode at any given point of time. Over the past few years, while we have seen many Bitcoin value surges, which has brought itself to the $46,000 mark today, we have also seen a number of crashes which has taken Bitcoin down by a massive margin, which is not something that happens in the equity market, in the stock market, or even in the money market, because there is a fair amount of regulation. Even with investors investing in futures or playing short, there is a fair amount of regulation which prevents stocks from being as volatile as this. And for companies investing in something this volatile would essentially mean that their money is at stake and the value of their money can get eroded at any given point of time. On this note, Tesla investing $1.5 billion in Bitcoin and having that holding, and also announcing that they might start accepting payments for their products in Bitcoin, is an interesting move and might just be one of the first moves which shows that the corporate world is ready to accept cryptocurrencies as a valid mode of payment, which also means that cryptocurrencies might not just be in the discussions and on the sidelines anymore. It might just be accepted as mainstream money going into the future.
Welcome back. You're watching the Tech and Auto Show and I'm your host Manav Sinha. Now, as promised, it's time to talk about the future of automobiles. You see, when we talk about the future of automobiles, the thing that has a lot of people pinning its hope on is electric vehicles. However, there's another side to that coin, another side to that argument, which says that hybrid vehicles is the answer that we need right now. The future will take care of itself. So, we decided to put together these technologies and find out which is better. The future of electric vehicles, now that is a phrase that is being thrown around quite a lot recently, but when you pause and think about what that future is going to be like, well, then there are two possibilities that stand out of the rest. The first one is electric vehicles.
And the second is the hybrid vehicles. Yes, the electric vehicles have zero tailpipe emissions, but then they need a huge infrastructure support and also are very expensive. For me, and this is what I believe, that hybrid vehicles are the immediate solution to the India's pollution problem.
So let's take a closer look at both electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles and do an in-depth analysis, work from home style. Alright, so I will start by talking about the positives of electric vehicles first. If one of your biggest concerns is the fact that vehicles cause pollution and you want to strive towards a future with cleaner air, then there's nothing better than an electric car. Well, technically yes, it does require resources to make the car in the first place, but once that is done, the tailpipe emissions is actually zero. Some people might think that electric vehicles have a shoddy range, and that's rightly so, because the first popular EV in India, the E20, actually only had a range of 80 kilometers. However, now cars like the Hyundai Kona would go on to drive about 450 kilometers on a single charge. And internationally, cars like the ones made by Tesla are crossing 600 kilometers on a single charge, and it is only a matter of time in the not so distant future that the technology becomes a lot more affordable, making range anxiety a thing of the past. If you calculate the cost per kilometer of petrol or diesel powered car versus the cost per kilometer that comes up for an electric car, then well, electric is exponentially cheaper. To put it into perspective, the per kilometer cost of an EV comes out to be less than ₹1 per kilometer, while for petrol powered car, on an average, it would start from somewhere at a cost of ₹4 per kilometer and only go above from there. So there you have it, these are the positives of electric vehicles, but what about hybrid vehicles?
The hybrid vehicles have plenty of positives too. For starters, they do not need as much infrastructure support as the electric vehicles. For example, the Toyota Camry Hybrid is a self-charging car. On the other hand, vehicles like Volvo XC90 T8 Hybrid is a PHEV, which means plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, and you get a charger installed at your home or at your workplace, which you can use efficiently to charge the car. And then there's the range anxiety, which is stopping a lot of people from buying the electric cars. You see, in the hybrid vehicles, there is dual power source, which is mostly petrol and electric. If your batteries ever get dried up, you can always go to the fuel pump and get your petrol filled without any range anxiety. And lastly, the most exciting thing about the hybrid vehicles is their initial cost of ownership, which means the vehicle itself is very low priced as compared to the electric vehicles, and this way you can meet your expenses in a very short time. But like everything else, there's always another side of the coin, and the electric vehicles cannot be so perfect. So Manav, tell me about some of the negatives.
Well, yes, like you mentioned, there are a few, but interestingly, they are the opposite of the positives of hybrid cars. If you compare the number of fuel pumps that you find on your daily commutes or highway drives versus an EV charging station, then the problem becomes evident. Charging an EV is still a hassle, and even if you do happen to find one, it will take forever to charge as compared to the time it takes up to fill up your petrol tank. While the range of an electric vehicle has improved, and yes, the running cost of an electric car is exponentially less than a conventional car, but there is a catch. You see, the cost of buying a new electric car in the first place is actually way higher than a similarly spec'd conventional car. Recovering this extra cost would take very long in certain cases. This is because the battery technology still has some way to go before it becomes equally expensive to make an electric car and sell to the masses, as opposed to something being powered by an internal combustion engine. So these are the negatives of electric vehicles, but what about hybrid cars?
While hybrid vehicles might be the immediate answer to the pollution problem of India, they cannot be the long-term solution, as electric vehicles are the only vehicles which are having zero tailpipe emission. On the other hand, the hybrid vehicles do have certain tailpipe emission because they are using petrol as a power source too, and the battery range is also less. Also, the hybrid vehicles in India right now are out of common man's reach. For example, the Toyota Camry and the Toyota Prius hybrid are all priced upwards of rupees 40 lakhs. There's no mass manufacturer who has yet decided to bring the hybrid technology to the budget cars. But if they decide to do so, it will be way more cheaper than the electric vehicles.
So there you have it. These are the positives and negatives of both electric vehicles as well as hybrid vehicles. But when you see the bigger picture, one of them starts to make a bit more sense than the other. Isn't that, Arjun?
Well, yes, Manav, I'm all for electric vehicles, and I know they are the future of mobility. But you see, electric vehicles need heavy infrastructure which India lacks. And that is why I believe the hybrid vehicles are the solution to the India's immediate pollution problem.
And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of the Tech and Auto Show. How did you find the show? Is there anything you have to say, anything you want us to cover, or simply want to have a conversation with us? Well, reach out to us on Twitter. We'll be more than happy to talk. If it's about technology, you can reach out to us at News18Tech. If it's about automobiles, tweet out to us with all your queries and questions at News18Auto. And remember, by logging on to news18.com, you can read up more on both the worlds of technology as well as automobiles. Well, that's about all for today. I'll catch you same time next week, only on CNN News 18.